Our next guests are the stuff that great stories are made of right here in the good old US of A. They head up the historic Narragansett Brewing Company. Before we get to them, here's a little background, and it's great. Narragansett got its start brewing beer in 1890. The company used to be the official sponsor of the Boston Red Sox. It controlled 65% of the beer market in New England. But in 1981, because of a series of business-related snafus, production of the beer, let's just call it Gansett, it stopped. And in 2005, however, Mark Hellendrung, the former president of Nantucket Nectars, along with a group of investors, decided to buy the name and bring the beer back to life. In 2008, Mark teamed up with businessman Eric Spitz, who's now the CFO of the company, and the two set out to bring the company back with, well, bring the beer back with a major rebranding and a relaunch this past summer. Mark and Eric are joining us now. Guys, great of you to be here. Look, just going through the history, because you mentioned Gansett to anybody of age in this part of the country, and there's an immediate name recognition. But Mark, how did you end up knowing that the name and the beer existed for you to buy? How did you ink that deal initially?
Well, I was literally sitting in a bar one evening in Newport, Rhode Island, Cappy's Hillside Tavern, and I was ready for my next beer, and I wasn't all that excited about all the choices, and the bartender said, you know what, you need a Gansett. And next thing you know, the whole bar was talking about Narragansett beer, and it was just such a powerful brand and such a powerful reaction to that. I did some research and learned that Pabst Brewing Company owned the brand, and really, on a whim, called up Brian Kovalchuk, who was the CEO at the time, and over the course of about 10 months, we ended up cutting a deal together.
So you bought the product because you liked it. I mean, I think to me that's the big takeaway here. You fell in love with something and decided you wanted to take it to the next level. And so what was the next level once you bought it?
Well, the first step was really getting the beer quality back to what it used to be. I got in touch with Bill Anderson, who was the last brewmaster at the old brewery in Cranston, and he had the recipe kicking around in his head. So we set out first to recreate that, and you know, we just last year won a bronze medal at the World Beer Cup. We're the highest rated domestic lager by Beer Advocates. So, you know, that was really the important first step, was making a great beer again.
You got to point that out, Mark. The beer didn't exist. It had disappeared. It hadn't existed since 1981. But how did you come up with the money along with the investors? Did you just literally go to people you knew who liked liked the idea and jumped on board?
Yeah, it was really an emotional story more than, well, let's face it, the business model needed to make sense, but it was really about people who really loved beer or loved New England or loved this resurrection product. So it was really an emotional sell to a lot of high net worth individuals and local angel groups and people who just thought that, you know, Narragansett beer didn't deserve the fate that it had and wanted to help bring this thing back.
And Eric, is that what happened when he came to you? You just loved it? You loved the product? Because otherwise, you sign on with a beer that's non-existent? That's a big career risk.
Well, when I got involved, the beer had existed for a while. Mark had been at it for 3.5 years, and my involvement was to help bring some new money to the table, as well as to help bring it into Massachusetts and the larger part of New England. Mark had done most of his efforts in Rhode Island, and it was time to expand the brand and really build it. And frankly, I got involved because of the business opportunity. Regional beers work across America, and New England is the 5th biggest beer market in the country. So it stands to reason that regional beer would work here. There was an old heritage brand that once was the regional beer of New England, and we were to bring it back.
But regional brands and beers also get hit with costs, and you had commodity costs going through the roof these days. How did you guys muddle through that?
Well, we had to weather a pretty big storm, just like the rest of the industry. Between freight costs are a huge component of this, energy costs, you know, making glass and you know, making the beer. So really the whole industry took a hit, from the imports to, you know, Anheuser-Busch and Miller Coors to all the way down to us. We did have a couple price increases last year, but you know, we took a massive margin hit, and sometimes you just got to weather the storm.
We want to talk about, we're going to just take a breath to welcome our radio listeners, but also how you got it into bars and how you got the word out and how you recreated the whole look of this beer.
Here.
Narragansett beer. Eric, to that point when you came on board, and we've talked about this on the air before, but about the effectiveness of social media, because you're doing this trying to get the word out on a shoestring, and how effective that has been for you.
Absolutely. You know, as I said before, the social media era that we're in really allows us to compete on an even par basis with some of the bigger brands that we compete with. And we can't do that on television, we can't do that on radio because we just don't have the capital. But in the social media arena, we need to make noise and hope people are listening. And we're doing a whole bunch of things around that. And frankly, we're only aiming at the local marketplace. So we feel like we have an advantage over some of the big brands that need to tell a more global message.
Eric, you guys right now are in Rochester. That's where you make the lager and the light beer, which, by the way, we got to talk about how the lager has, like, low calories. I need to be sold on that. But you're trying to move product back home, right? You want to start manufacturing this thing up in New England. Can you tell us a little bit how that's going?
Mark is probably a better person to talk about that since he's spearheading that campaign.
Okay.
Well, really, when we got into this, it was, you know, we had a choice between putting our money into sales and marketing or building a brewery and hope people found the product. So we started with sales and marketing first, and now we're about 15 months away from bringing the brewery back to New England, which would be awesome. I mean, the economy is not great. We're going to help stimulate jobs and to have a place where people can come see the process and taste the beer and learn about our great history would just be tremendous for the brand. It'd be great for the local economy. And so we're just asking New Englanders to drink their part. Every case is a brick in the brewery. And you know, we're all kind of in this together. I mean, we talked about social media. It's really, it's not my brand or Eric's brand. It's really New England's brand, and that's really what makes it so much fun building this thing together.
Well, we were talking about social media, Mark, but you built this thing with shoe leather. You were doing listening tours initially to get it into the bars, and how many were you visiting in a week? What, 60 or 70 establishments? And are you still doing that?
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely. This is a relationship business, and it's one bar at a time, and it's knocking on doors and striking up conversations. We go into bars a lot and buy people beers, and people just have such great stories. And you know, I guess that's part of another aspect of social media. It's not necessarily online, but it certainly is social. And you know, what's great is even at the end of a bad day, you can go to a bar and one of your favorite haunts and have a nice cold Gansett and really just have a great time. I mean, we meet people from all walks of life, and it's a great job.
Sorry, I just want to point out we were watching some video of your nightlife awards, which is
and the video before that, I have to say, reminds me of Laverne and Shirley. Do you remember Laverne and Shirley when they put the glove on and it goes down?
No, I'm too young to. Of course, I remember Laverne and Shirley. And you also, before we take a break, you guys have resurrected a brand with a rich history, because people around here, as soon as I say Narragansett, they're like, Quint drank Narragansett in Jaws. Kurt Gowdy, right. Kurt Gowdy was the voice of Hi Neighbor, Have a Gansett. So the history is rich, and it brings back memories and attaches an emotion to a product, even though it didn't exist for 20-some-odd years. Mark and Eric, some final quick words. You got 15 seconds, gentlemen.
People go out, buy a case of Narragansett beer, help us build this brewery together. Every case is a brick in the brewery. Let's create some jobs together in New England.
Drink your part.
Beautifully said. Hi, neighbor.
Drink your part.
Drink your part.
And say, hi, neighbor. Have a Gansett.
Hi, neighbor.
Have a Gansett. Guys, it was a pleasure. Mark Hellendrung and Eric Spitz from Narragansett Beer Company they're joining us today. Thank you so much.